Tonight, the Met Service concedes Thursday's weather conditions were unexpected and urges a constant state of readiness. The Minister for Justice and National Security says he deemed Bordelais safe for a teen who ended up being assaulted by 3 male inmates. And 9 years later, residents of Soufrière-Fonséjac reflect on lessons learned the hard way from Hurricane Thomas.
This is the Hot 7 Nightly News with Lovelace and Amy Joseph.
Good night. It is Thursday, the 31st of October 2019. Welcome to the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. We're on Flow, channel 117, also being simulcast on Kiss FM. You can also watch via our website. It's www.caribbeanhottv.com or on our free Caribbean Hot FM mobile app. I'm lovely St. Amy Joseph. Thank you for joining us. According to the Met Services, weather conditions were expected to clear up by Thursday after a flash flood warning on Wednesday. Instead, it rained heavily throughout Thursday morning. The Director of Met Services underscores that weather conditions can change rapidly and urges people to be in a constant state of preparedness as weather tends to be unpredictable. He says the Met Service is keeping an eye on some developing systems. A flash flood warning on Wednesday was issued from 11:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. The threat of flooding was thought to be over by then, but as is often the case with weather, things took a turn. Thursday morning brought torrential rain, which the Director of Met Services, Andre Joyer, admits was unexpected. The clearer skies predicted by Thursday did not materialize.
Well, unexpected conditions. The system that affected us yesterday is continuing to affect us today. We've experienced this before where the system moves out rather quickly, so we would get just 1 day of rain. But things have changed and the system is lingering. It's also interacting with a tropical wave, so we believe that's the cause for all this rain this morning.
The Atlantic hurricane season runs from the 1st of June to the 30th of November. The peak of the season is from mid-August to late October. However, deadly hurricanes can occur any time in the hurricane season. Joyer says the Met Service is monitoring developing systems and people should continue to be vigilant.
I cannot say for sure because we have other tropical waves. Right now, there's an area of interest which is between the Caribbean and Africa. And something most persons don't know is that there's a formation of Rebecca in the Atlantic, but it's not going to affect us. So there are still systems out there. As to whether it will affect us, we have to just wait and see.
Most of the named storms in the Atlantic Ocean this year were weak and short-lived like Rebecca. Hurricane Dorian and Hurricane Lorenzo both managed to break through the lull and become scale-topping Category 5 hurricanes. Dorian led to a historic tragedy in the Bahamas, while Lorenzo was the farthest east that such a strong hurricane has ever been recorded. Both storms highlighted the fact that it only takes one storm to take off during an otherwise dull season to become a major disaster. It drives home the point that all storms should be taken seriously, regardless of their name or title. The decision to place a teenage girl at the Bordelais Correctional Facility was that of Minister for Justice and National Security, Hermangild Francis, who deemed it safe to house her there. 2 weeks ago, police confirmed that the 16-year-old girl was assaulted by 3 male inmates of the facility. There has been clamoring for a facility to house juvenile offenders. Minister Francis says the government is well aware of the need for a proper facility to house juvenile offenders, but he says currently the funding for such an institution is just not available.
And we would realize that the government did in fact pass the Child Protection Act and Adoption Act. This means that there are other things that we have to do and to put in this minimum area. At the time, the government does not have an infinite amount of money. So what I did as a minister, I have the power to decide that Bordelais is a safe place for children. We did some renovation to a particular area, and she was housed there.
The president of Raise Your Voice St. Lucia, Catherine Seelys, in a previous interview, called for heads to roll regarding the assault of the teen while housed at the Bordelais Correctional Facility. The minister was questioned about the case outside the House of Assembly on Thursday ahead of the Senate seating. He said he had no updates on the case.
When the file has reached a certain stage of the investigations, then I am briefed.
Okay,
But you know for a fact that 3 individuals were involved, they were arrested and charged, so the police will give you the further information on that.
For her part, activist Catherine Seelys has demanded answers surrounding the incident and is also demanding swift justice to be brought to all those responsible, from the perpetrators to the powers that be. She says the island has a poor record of protecting children from violence. It has been 9 years since major flooding and landslides caused by Hurricane Tomas claimed 9 lives, displaced hundreds of individuals, damaged roads and bridges, destroyed water supply facilities, disrupted electricity and telecommunication services, and left some communities completely isolated. The chairperson of the Soufrière Disaster Response Committee reflects on the experience and the lessons learned from Hurricane Tomas. St. Lucia was ravaged by Hurricane Tomas on the 30th of October 2010. The Category 1 hurricane began affecting St. Lucia about 12 p.m. on Saturday the 30th of October, with maximum sustained winds of 75 miles per hour with higher gusts. The memories of Hurricane Tomas will forever be fresh in the mind of chairperson of the Soufrière Disaster Response Committee, Simone Mondesi. She says important lessons were learned the hard way by the people of Soufrière-Fonsèjacq and indeed the entire country. She recalls that 9 years ago, people were so caught up in Journée Créole preparations and activities that they paid little heed to weather advisories and warnings. She says last-minute preparations were happening even after the order to shut down, and she had to personally call in the police to get businesses in the town to shut down.
I remember that day I was all the way in Anguilla. I was doing disaster mitigation as a consultant. I was in consultancy in Dominica, St. Kitts, Anguilla, St. Lucia. But that day I was in Anguilla and I was making my way back via Antigua. And when I heard storm, I said, boy, it's coming for true. I said, Lord, let me get to St. Lucia. When I get to St. Lucia, I went by the bus stop, no buses, but people waiting. And I said, we're getting a bus and we're going home. Passing down the road, everybody having their fun, it's Journée Créole weekend, people not taking heed. I could feel the weather changing. We made it home. Next day, whilst in Anguilla, I called the deputy to activate the team, get things going, check shelters, make sure keys are in place. They did their work whilst I was away. So from where I was able to conduct our meeting via telephone. And then I made it. Next day, I'm trying to go around and get people to listen. The storm is coming. The wind is blowing. And as usual, they say, hey, nothing not coming. They always say storm coming and there's nothing coming. So I had to call the police and ask them to go around and get the stores to shut down. That's the time people rush in and say, they have to buy their groceries. You all say storm coming and we have nothing at home. I said, that should have been there a long time.
By evening time on that fateful day, the weather conditions had deteriorated significantly. Rivers were overflowing their banks and massive landslides were occurring in Fonsèjacq and other parts of Soufrière. Avalanches of mud were clearing everything in their path, including houses.
The calls start coming in. Later in the evening, somebody stranded, water going on in their house. The fire department trying to pick me up at home, go and save people. We opened the shelters were already open. People at the shelters wet, running to get blankets, everything for them. And I myself got caught in the shelter.
Mondesi remembers that the fire service was stretched to its limit and was struggling to respond to calls for help because there was simply no way to get around the rivers or over the mountains of mud and debris.
Get a shortcut to Fonsèjacq because that's where all the disasters were. Trying to get to Fonsèjacq, we had to pass through Diamond, give people boxes to carry on their head, bringing food, bringing water up to help people. And that was it. And that's where it started, with all the helping people, feeding people. Then we had the tent city where we had shelter kits, and we had to set up the tent on the field to get people sheltered there until we could get houses for them.
The Soufrière Disaster Response Committee provided shelter for approximately 30 people in Fort Saint-Jacques in the aftermath of Hurricane Thomas. Mondesi says the experience drove home the importance of disaster preparedness. Since then, she says residents of Soufrière Fort Saint-Jacques pay close attention to weather advisories and are in a state of readiness during the hurricane season.
Serena Prosper has only one word for the experience of Hurricane Thomas: horrible. She says she was one of those residents who were hesitant to evacuate the Fort Saint-Jacques area after the hurricane warning had been given. She lived in the community of Mini in Fort Saint-Jacques. Her house was damaged and her shop completely destroyed by the mudslides 9 years ago. Government relocated her and other affected residents to the community of Moka in Fort Saint-Jacques. That's where we caught up with her.
Serena Prosper, also known as Lily, was very dismissive of the hurricane warning and the evacuation order issued on the 30th of October 2010. Had she not listened to her daughter, who insisted that they evacuate their house, they may not have lived to tell the tale of Thomas.
My children had already left for work, and most of them called me and told me, Mom, they said there's a hurricane coming. And I said, it's not going to do us anything. So the younger one, she came back from, she used to work at the time at the radio station, and she told me, Mom, they sent us back home and they said that we need to leave, or those who we need to go on to a safer place. I insisted I'm not going, but she told me, no, we have to go. And then we left at about, I would say 10:30 in the morning. We went to Soufrière, to my other daughter's house.
At her daughter's house in New Development Soufrière, Prosper says she could hear and even smell the mudslides. In the light of day, word of mouth began to spread about conditions at Fort Saint-Jacques. At the time, electricity and cell phone service were down. Prosper was holding out hope that she could make it to her house to salvage anything.
When I left my daughter's house, we were trying to go through Zeno to come back to my house to Fort Saint-Jacques. When we arrived at Zeno, we could not cross. At the same time, some people were coming down from Fort Saint-Jacques and they told us no need to go because it's not possible, we won't be able to get to Fort Saint-Jacques through the main road. And then one other person told me, Lily, tout ça on ira aller, pas besoin monter. I started crying. I went back to town, my children told me, Mommy, do not cry, and I cried all day. I said, Lord, what kind of thing is that?
Her house was one of the many that was damaged by mudslides during the passage of Hurricane Thomas. Some were completely swept away. Through a government initiative, she was relocated to Moka in Fort Saint-Jacques 2 years after Hurricane Thomas.
I live here and I see when it rains, I am always shaky. I don't sleep. Like last week, I didn't sleep. I was worried, thinking of what we went through in 2010. I do not want to go through this again.
Having lived through the devastation of Hurricane Thomas, Serena Prosper urges people to take all weather advisories seriously and to always be prepared.
You're watching the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. Still to come, the Ministry of Health has advised to keep the number of recorded cases of hand, foot and mouth disease on the low. Hermangild Francis takes issue with the broadcast of some comments by Kathleen Series, and the government of St. Lucia vows that it is pressing ahead with plans to improve the health sector. That and more when we return.